Hi, hello, welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Maddie. I like to read and that's about it. But for today's video, I'm going to talk about my fall TBR. I've already posted my big, long fall book recommendation list, so feel free to check it out. Of course, after viewing this video. And on my fall TBR, I mostly have a lot of fantasy books because that's just the genre that I like to read during fall. I'm going to start with the books that I have already read because I started reading my fall TBR in September. The first book being A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid. This is a YA standalone. It follows Effie. She's a university student. She enters this competition to redesign her favorite author's estate. However, when she arrives at the estate, she finds that there is another student there from her university who is trying to prove that her favorite author is a fraud. Like I mentioned, I read this book last month. I loved it so much. I thought it was so good, so atmospheric. It has dark academia vibes. It has a little bit of fantasy elements as well. This book is haunting, but in the best way possible. Another book on my fall TBR that I have already read is The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. This is a YA fantasy trilogy. You might recognize the spin-off duology, which is Dance of Thieves and Vow of Thieves. But anyways, The Kiss of Deception, it follows a princess who is set to marry the prince of the neighboring kingdom for some sort of alliance between both kingdoms. However, she doesn't want to marry the prince, so she runs away, and while on the run, she ends up unknowingly running into the prince and also the assassin that was sent to kill her. I think this first novel was published in 2014, so it definitely has 2010s vibes to it, which I know aren't for everyone, but it felt kind of nostalgic for me to read as an adult who grew up in the 2010s and read a ton of books during that time. I like the book. I see potential in the rest of the series, so we'll see if it holds up. Speaking of the rest of the series, I also have Heart of Betrayal and Beauty of Darkness also in my fall TBR. I have no idea what these books are about, but it would be straight up spoilers if I did. And the last book that I read from my fall TBR so far is Bring Me Your Midnight. I believe this is by Rachel Griffin. I borrowed this from the library, so I don't have like a physical copy with me. But this is about Tana. She's a witch. She lives with her coven on this island, and in order for her coven to gain approval from the mainland, she is set to marry the governor's son from the mainland. However, everything changes when she meets someone who practices dark magic. And then the question becomes, will she stick to duty or will she choose something for herself for once? I will say this book primarily focuses on the romance and the characters. It has easy world building and the book flows nicely together. Overall, I thought it was good, but I didn't really have a strong connection to either one of the characters or just the story overall. But I can definitely see how people truly love this book. The next book is what I'm currently reading. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you know that I've been talking about this the last month, but it's The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This book is the essence of dark academia, I feel like. While under the influence of their classics professor, a group of eccentric and misfit students at a elite New England college slowly derail into corruption and betrayal. Like I said, I'm currently reading this. I don't know too much beyond what the book is about besides that very basic description that I gave you, and I want to keep it that way. Okay, now onto the books that are on my TBR that I have not read yet. The first one being I Who Have Never Known Men. This is by Jacqueline Hartman. This follows a young woman who has no name, no memory. She is kept in a cage with 39 other women who are under the constant guard and watch of armed men who never speak to them. This is dystopian, it's science fiction, it's also under 300 pages, so it's relatively short. I really don't know too much about the story. The blurb of it is very vague, but I feel like it's purposeful in that way. I am excited to read this. I've heard good things about it, and it's been on my TBR for a long time. Next book is Juniper and Thorn, also by Ava Reid. Since reading A Steady Drowning, I have definitely had an itch to read more of her books. This book is a gothic horror retelling, and I've been told it's very dark and haunting and disturbing and fractured. This book follows the main character Marlin Chen. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly, so sorry if I'm not. She lives with her wizard father. Her and her sisters are the last true witches. However, they're treated more as tourist traps, and they are unfortunately sequestered from the rest of the town by their tyrannical father. While the town is flourishing, there is a monster lurking in its midst, and Marlin Chen must draw upon her own magic to save the town and also find herself along the way. The next book is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. The book is about young girls who start going missing on the Isle of Cadence, and music student Jack is summoned to the isle in order to help find the missing girls. Cadence is an enchanted isle, and it's haunted by capricious spirits. This is another name I have no idea how to pronounce, so sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but Adaria, she's the heiress and Jack's childhood enemy. But anyways, they have to work together to find the missing girls. This is a fantasy. It has romance in it, which I adore. It also just sounds cozy and enchanting and very magical, which is right up my vibe of the type of books that I like to read. The next book is Ruthless Vows, also by Rebecca Ross. I have read Divine Rivals. It's been over a year since I read it, so I need to finish the duology. Divine Rivals follows two young journalists who communicate with each other through a magical typewriter and find themselves in the middle of a god war that is brewing in their country. It's enchanting, it's magical, it has romance, it's about love and grief, and it also has yearning, which I love. The next book on my list is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This is actually set in the Spanish Inquisition, another name that I don't really know how to pronounce, and I'm not even gonna try this time because I feel like I'm just butchering all these names. Anyways, the FMC, she uses scraps of magic in order to get through the days, and she is discovered and convinced to use her gifts to better her family's social position. And thus she is thrown into the world of magic, science, and fraud, and will do anything to survive. This is a historic fiction with fantasy elements. I believe there's also romance in it. Can't wait to find out what it's about. One complaint of this book that I've heard is that you are kind of just thrown in right into the time period and the history, and I don't think there's that much background explanation of what's going on. So if you are unfamiliar of this time period, you should probably spend a couple minutes learning about it before diving into this book. The next book on my list is actually the third book in the series, but it's Escaping from Houdini. This is part of Stalking Jack the Ripper. Basically, this entire series is unserious Sherlock Holmes with a dash of romance. It's fun, it's amusing, it's a little spooky, but in a fun way. Nothing groundbreaking necessarily happens, but it's a fun read. The next book is A Tempest of Tea. Basically, I think this is a heist, but with vampires. It follows the main character, Arthi. She's a criminal mastermind, and she also runs this tea shop that sells tea in the day, but becomes a illegal blood house for vampires at night. However, when her establishment is threatened, she is kind of forced into taking an unlikely deal in order to save it. I've been told this is like Six of Crows in terms of the heist aspect, but obviously it has vampires in it and it's a completely different world and plot. I'm excited to read this book. The next book is actually two books, but it's Dance of Thieves and Vow of Thieves. Remember when I talked about the Kiss of Deception? This is the spin-off series of that series. I honestly have no idea what the duology is about, and I want to keep it that way because I'm still reading the Remnant Chronicles series, and I feel like if I know what Dance/Vow of Thieves is about, it's gonna spoil that series in some way. But just know, I want to read it. It's a YA fantasy duology. I think it has romance in it. What more can I say? The last book on this list, and probably what I'm most excited to read, but it's The Unmaking of June Farrow. I think this is magical realism but with time travel, and that's literally all I know about this book. I have been told by others that I should go into this book not really knowing what it's about because it'll just be a better reading experience that way, and I'm trusting their opinion on that. But it's kind of funny, it's the book I'm most excited to read about, but also the book that I know the least about. Anyways, that concludes my fall TBR. Let me know what's on your fall TBR down below. I would love to know. Feel free to like and or subscribe or comment. It lets me know how much you like this video. If you want to find me elsewhere, I'm also on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok. It's the same account name, Maddie Reed 6. And without further ado, I'll see you next time.